Now, for this section, we're going to talk a little bit about Minnesota tax deeds because it's a state that oftentimes gets overlooked, but has pretty good opportunities and more online opportunities than you might realize. So, Minnesota is classified as a tax deed state. Um, One of the reasons why they initially got overlooked, though, is because the first time they offer up properties, they'll offer them up for two-thirds of the assessed value. Then, if the properties don't get bid on, then they'll lower the bidding. But because it was that two-thirds amount, I think Steve and I originally kind of looked at the area and said, "Oh, well, we're not interested in a place, where they're selling the properties at two-thirds the value." But in reality, when they're selling them that high, oftentimes the properties don't get bids, and so they end up lowering the bid amount, and it ends up being a little bit more like a traditional tax deed auction, where it's starting at a fairly low amount, and you can bid it up and have a lot of profitability in it.
Yeah, in fact, we'll look at some properties that where the opening bid may have been $100,000 and now it's starting at $8,000 because they've dropped it after giving that initial offer at two-thirds of assessed value. Now they're going to use a premium bidding method, meaning that they're going to start at whatever that opening bid is, if it's two-thirds of assessed value or if it's a lower amount, and then bid up. And whoever's the high bidder will go ahead and win the property. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is Minnesota has started moving a lot of their auctions over to a government surplus website. And so there's more opportunity now to bid at online auctions. A few years ago, it was really just on site. So if you weren't there in Minnesota, you weren't going to be able to participate in the sale. They've also, in some of these counties, have started adding if exterior photos, but also some interior photos in many of the counties. And so that can give us a lot better idea on the condition of the interior and help us better determine what our high bid amount is going to be on it.
Yeah, in fact, let's go and check out a few of these here. Oh, what did I just do? Let's do that again. And
Pre-sale review.
there we go. Okay, so we've got a couple of different sales that we can check out here. These are all, we're looking at three different counties here that are holding sales in Minnesota. We have Benton County, Minnesota here.
Yeah, in fact, this is the first time this property is being offered for auction. So it's essentially starting at two-thirds of the assessed value.
Yeah, and if we want, we can pull it up here and look, and we can see it starts at 134. And if we come down here, you'll see that they estimate the market value there. They're saying at 134 there. And what's interesting here is if we go and
It's
look,
actually two different properties there. You can see on the county record, there's two links there that go back to two different maps. So we'll see the view parcel 1 and view parcel 2.
yeah, we can kind of see the images right here, I think. Yeah, so you can see here's the one image there, and there's the other image right there. So it's these two lots right here. They're
Yeah.
right next to each other. And yeah, we've got the overhead images here of the lot.
You can go down and look at the street view. It's actually got kind of a, looks like a two-car garage and then a living space to the right. It's pretty simple. It's that lot right there where that structure is at with the two-car garage, and then the lot to the left of it.
Yeah, the lot right there. Let's see. So valued at 189,000. So chances are the property's probably not going to get a bid here where it's at right now at 134.
Well, let's look a little more into it because we're also looking at the lot, and I, it may not, but it very well could, because I think that both of them are probably valued about 300. So that's a lot that had just sold.
For 185.
Yeah, and then you can see somebody had just built on it. Somebody bought the lot about a year ago, and then somebody has built on it since then. But the lot sold for 184 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And these are a couple really small properties that's 600 square feet on one of them, 689 square feet, and for 255. So the lot itself is probably worth, uh, at least 120 or 130, maybe more than that. And then the structure is probably worth about 200. I think it's got 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and then the 2-car garage. They probably used it kind of camping. In fact, if you look on it, it's on a really beautiful lake, and so there's $1 million properties on this lake.
Well, and what will probably happen, so if it doesn't get a bid here, for that amount, they're gonna lowering the amount down closer to probably what's owed in taxes and fees, and they could end up re-offering the property up starting at $20,000 or starting at $10,000 and, allow the winning bidder to essentially win it. So a property like this, while we may not necessarily bid on it the first time through because the percentages might be too high, the next time through, it very well could be a very, really good property to go after.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see if it gets reoffered. I think that if you looked a little bit more into it, it could be worth it even at 135, because that might be like 30 or 40 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, which it could be. You never know here what'll happen. Now, like Steve was saying, a lot of these Minnesota counties are offering up their properties through like surplus sites, like Public Surplus. And so, what's interesting here is we've got all the properties here for this county that we're looking at. This is St. Louis County. I think they've got a sale on the 25th. Is about the date that it happens. Now, what's interesting about these is if we're looking at some of these properties. So let me actually just delete that one. And let's go down and look through here. So let's see if we can show you how some of these things work. So for instance, if I pull up this one right here on track 22, and what we have here is we've got a home. We see the opening bid amount is 8,000.
Nobody's bid on it yet.
Yeah, and we can see the initial price though on the property was 83,000. So that was what it initially went up for when it was being bid on, was for 83,000, and it didn't get bid on. But at 8,000, is it more likely to get a bid? Well, yeah, it's probably way more likely, to get a bid. In fact, and we can pull up the property here.
And if it doesn't get a bid, they'll actually drop the property down again.
So there's the house there. We can see that's an August 2025 image right there. And yeah, we've got the property address here, and uh, they're estimating it. Say it could be valued at 97,000. It's pretty rough right now. It's an older house, and so, but again, there's potential there with the property. There's potential there with it. Yeah, let's look at a couple of these.
I just love the way that they dropped the price down.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing a lot of good deals come out of Minnesota right now. And, this county isn't providing as much information, but some of the counties will have entire interior photos.
Yeah, so this one, they only give us 2 photos on this one. We can see the original price though was 60,000. So the minimum bid this time is 7,300, and they've got 1 bid on it already. And so this one will end up selling this time, since they've lowered this bid amount. But yeah, it'll be a pretty good opportunity here. Yeah, and if we were to look, there's Redfin on it is at about 92,000. And so, yeah, I mean, if the buyer here is able to pick it up for under 10 or $15,000, it's going to have a lot of potential here in terms of a property that they could fix up and sell, or they could just sell it as is with that low of a purchase price. But if you pick this property up for under 20,000, you could do a lot of things with it.
Yeah, in fact, really kind of the opening bid is about 10% of what the original opening bid on the property was. And so you'll see a big group of these that'll go ahead and be listed. We've seen these properties listed before where they started out at that opening bid, nobody bidded on them, or very few. Maybe there was a couple where the assessed value was low and the market value was quite a bit higher. But let's say that 1 or 2 out of an entire list may get purchased, then they'll go ahead and reoffer them. So we're always going back and looking, and if we see a big list that has nice properties on it, we're going to be excited when those get reoffered for sale starting at the lower bid amount.
Yeah, here's another one, starting at $4,200, that originally was for 47,000. We can see of this house right here. And, there's our full address here on the property right there. Let's see here if we can. It must be the house right back there that's kind of hidden here behind all these bushes.
What does the
Uh,
photo? What does the current photo look like that the county had?
Looks like that.
And you can see it a lot better with it, in the winter time.
Yeah, it's not nearly so full there in the winter time.
It looks like it had a garage next to it as well. Oh, there it is. It's kind of covered.
Let's see, they put the value there at 67 on Zillow and on Redfin. Let's just pull the value on it real quick. And 122 on Redfin.
Zillow didn't have their estimate sign next, tab next to it. So I think they're just pulling the assessed value.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, and a bunch of these, look pretty good. I mean, some of these, look at this one. So this one right here has two bids on it. $7,400 was the amount that it's bidding on, but this one is still occupied. And those are vinyl windows, new siding. A lot of this stuff is relatively new. This one originally was offered up at 84,000.
Yeah, and the bidding's not, going crazy on it. We would still get an on-site evaluation, but these photos are somewhat new. They took them before the auction took place, most likely, and then when we get the interior photos in some of the other counties, that can even give us quite a bit more information on it.
Yeah, we can see. In fact, in the other county here, I just wanted to look at before we take too long here. Otter Tail County, they have some great properties in here too that we could check out. Now, what's interesting about this sale is, so the very first property that we have on this list here for Otter County, this one starts at 55,000. So this is probably the initial offering here for this property, and maybe it will sell, maybe it won't at that $55,000 mark.
Yeah, this is
Interesting.
kind of similar to that first one in the first county where it's that higher opening bid amount. Depending on the condition and the value will depend if it sells. If not, then they'll be go ahead and reoffer it again.
Yeah, it also includes the lot that's right up there to the north, just north of it. But that's the initial offering on this property. Now, one thing that's interesting is if you scroll down here, starting about right here, I think. If you look, this one starts at $5,000, and this one's a piece of land. And if we're looking at it, so this one, I don't know if this is talking about a 1.29 acre lot here potentially, but look at the price they had on it initially of 126,000 for this lot.
No, I think it's 107 acres.
Well,
Maybe. Is that what it
it said
said?
107, then minus that it was like an exception here on it. Well, let's see here what it tells us.
Is it the
I
water?
can't even tell here. Let's see.
What does the map look like?
Looks like that.
No, they have it outside the water there. The GIS must be off.
Oh, that's weird. So it is showing that, but it's like this area is all showing up as water, even though if you look through it, it's not water, but it's probably like lowland,
It might be wetlands.
yeah, it probably is, considered to be like a wetland area. And so, but yeah, I wonder why they have the value set there so high. So if we look at this one, uh, right down below this one, starting also at 5,000.
They dropped the price because it didn't sell at the initial amount.
Yeah, we have this one right here, which this one is 15 acres. It's 15.9 acres here. And they had it starting originally at 94,000.
Yeah, before we bid it, even though these have dropped in price and they could be great deals, would definitely look into what the use would be.
Yeah, they may not have any use at all. Maybe why they didn't sell here in the
It's kind
first
of
place.
interesting that you can see over to the right, though, there's kind of a home right there on the edge of that.
Yeah. Well, this one's a ways away from there. Well, that's kind of interesting. Let me back up here and go down and show you the one other one here. So right down below that, on this one starting at 7,500. If we look at this one, so this one also was originally probably offered for a little bit higher amount. And if we're looking at it, you can see that it's basically a building lot. It looks like, next to this area. I'll copy that real quick and we'll
What
plug
happens
that
if you
in.
click on it? Does it just pull up the map without it typing it in?
What happens if I do what?
Oh, I was just wondering if the link just pulls up the map itself, not anything
Oh,
else.
oh yeah, it probably does. It might even pull it up here correctly. But yeah, so we can see this is actually a pretty good building lot there for and one that could be used here in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, some of these other properties, though, you can see some of the properties are going to have higher bids and ones that won't necessarily make sense. I think this one right here it's a it's an old house that's in there, but this is their for initial time offering it up here, and so initial offer there at 63,000. We'll see if if it sells or not. It may not get an opening bid amount though.
Yeah, and there were some pretty interesting homes in the St. Louis County auction. As you
Yeah,
continue going through there were some nicer ones.
yeah, there's quite a few nice homes in really in all three of the sales. A bunch of these are all good sales. There's probably in the St. Louis County one, there's probably 8 to 10 homes in there that are worth looking at. And in Otter County, there's probably another 3 or 4 properties in here that are probably worth looking at.
What did that one that starts at 55,000 open up? I think I was looking at that. I think the market value about 130 on it, 140. I can't remember. I think I looked a few weeks ago.
It's the very first property on the list is one that I was looking at, which is that mobile home.
Do you know what the market value on it was?
Let's see. I don't remember here. Did it pull up or did it not pull up? Maybe it didn't pull up for me. I think that is what happened. I think it didn't pull up any of the numbers.
It may have done that. I might have looked into the market value in the area. I think that's what I did.
Yeah. But, Minnesota is essentially, though, it's a much better area for tax sales than you might think. And a lot of times, even their smaller sales can have pretty good opportunities in them because it's this mix of properties that are being offered up for the first time and properties that have been offered before and are being offered up again at a lower price. And so, yeah, really, there's pretty good opportunities. And they are usually done here on these websites where where I think they probably have less competition than they would in a lot of other sites.
Yeah, I think that home, that's starting at 55. I think it was valued at over 150. Would
Yeah,
have
it
to
could
look
be.
into it. But you even see those old small homes were 170 grand, and that was like a newer modular home. So
Yeah,
it could sell in this auction. It may be worth it picking it up for 30 cents on the dollar if it's clean enough, if the market's good enough, it could definitely be worth it at that opening bid amount. But if not, then they'll drop that price down and may be able to win it for even cheaper.
Yeah, but the one thing you'll see about these sales though is that they do tend to get offered up here on public surplus like this, and on a month-to-month basis, just listed underneath the area where they're from. So that's why you can get sometimes a mix of stuff that's located in there, just because it's kind of a location-based uh, area that you're selecting to look at.
Well, and they have that one that's starting at 425. I'm going to be interested because that's a really nice home.
Yeah, yeah. This is the first time this one is being offered up and through. They've got it offered at 425, and
Is it
we'll
on?
see.
It's right
Yeah,
there on the lake. Big house on the lake.
yeah, we'll see here what it ends up selling for. If it doesn't get a bid here, it'll come back and it'll be a pretty good opportunity. Because yeah, that is our location right there, and it's on this Big McDonald Lake. July 2024 images there from it. And yeah, 732 on Zillow and on Redfin.
So even though it's starting at crazy high, I got a lot lower one on that one.
Yeah, built in 77. It's about 1,300 square feet.
Yeah, it might not bid at that price, but even at that, there's still a couple $100,000, even if you put $100,000 into rehabbing it.
Yeah, very interesting. We'll have to see whether or not it gets bids. It could, it may not. If it doesn't, though, it'll certainly come back and have better opportunities coming up.